And we are live. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Sorry for the late meeting today, but as we warned you earlier, we had some issues with time zones. But
Mm-hmm.
we're here now, and we are ready to talk about etiquette just in time for the holidays. We
Yes.
are we are so happy to have SuAnn Brown here with us today. She is an in-demand professional etiquette instructor and resident of Scottsdale. She owns the company It's All About Etiquette, and for the past 10 years has taught numerous etiquette classes and workshops to children and adults
Mm-hmm.
all across the valley. She's also bringing good manners, social skills, and etiquette into the school system and has helped numerous adults and business professionals feel much more confident and relaxed in social and professional situations. Welcome, Suanne.
Well, thank you for having me on today. It's I've been doing this a long time and it just goes by so quickly. But I'm having so much fun. So I'm in my parents love me and we don't have this anymore. And I really brought it back because 10 years ago I was just sitting talking to my husband and I said, I need to help these kids because they're not getting it from home. And the biggest thing that the parents say is they don't want to listen to me. And I said, okay, so then maybe they'll listen to me. So it takes maybe somebody, another person to go ahead and teach these manners to them. And my classes are full and they're so amazing because when I see this child come into the classroom, they're a different person when they come out because they're learning how to have social skills and they don't know. So it's so wonderful for me because I just look at them and I'm just saying you are so different and you're going to love all your life now. So it's so important. I just can't say enough.
I think it is true that so often kids need to hear it from someone else, that sometimes
Mhm.
it doesn't work from the parents alone. But let's kind of start at the beginning.
Mhm.
How would you actually describe what etiquette is if we start there?
I think that it's just there's a bunch of guidelines that are in and that people need to do right now. And it's being kind to others, respectful of others, just being nice to somebody and making other people feel comfortable. I mean, that's what it is. And it's never going to change unless you live in a cave. So we're always together, we're always communicating with each other. And if you're nice, everybody likes you. Nobody likes anybody that's mean. So it's really important to use all these etiquette manners.
So my question is, with etiquette, it's there's so many different parts of it, right? There's the manners part, and then there's the like how you act in. So it's also learning how to act in social situations, right? Like maybe social
Mhm.
cues. And do you help kids with that kind of thing too, like how to read social cues, or you know what I mean?
Yes, yes, I do cover. I have three types of groups. So I have a 6 to 8 class, and 9 to 12, and 13 to 18. Those are my teens. And because the etiquette changes as the child gets older, there's more etiquette that people look at them. And so I do teach body language. I tell them the first 7 seconds that somebody meets you, they're judging you. And I say, what are they judging you on? And they're judging you on your smile, your voice, how you look. It's everything. And if they say they don't really like you, then it's hard to change that. So I always tell my kids those 7 seconds are really important. So the handshake is important, and the voice, because if you're meeting somebody going, well, it's really nice to meet you, that's not a happy. Okay, so I always taught my kids about voice and be happy. Show them that you're happy being with them. So I do teach that as well. But as they get older, we do more etiquette classes, different topics.
You know what, SuAnn, that's scary that you say that judgment happens in that first 7 seconds.
Yeah. And
you know what I mean? That is just crazy to think that.
I know.
That somebody can judge us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it kind of makes you feel like, oh my gosh, what I just, maybe you don't think about it so much as a child, but now that you've said that, I'm going to think that,
Okay.
Yeah,
that's good.
Better or worse,
And it's not just me saying that.
I realize there's probably studies and everything.
Yes,
right.
Yes. Universities have tested this. So when I say that to them, they're like going, "Oh my gosh, maybe I should, be happy, have a smile on my face when I meet somebody." So it does kind of, the kids really get it, and my classes are usually 4 weeks. And they get a good 8 hours of training, and the parents are just amazed on all of that. And the dining etiquette and table manners is really important. And I tell my kids, you might go out as you get older and have a business client, for lunch, and you don't hold your utensils right. What are they going to think about you? So it's just so important to get them now when they're young. And then keep, I tell everybody, basically the etiquette is at home. Okay. So your parents are teaching your kids, and so always use please and thank you, and have it in your home, because if you're not using it at home and not eating at the table, how are your kids going to learn table manners?
Now, how do you respond to people who say, well, I don't dine anywhere where we have 17 forks and 15 spoons around the table, and it's like, do I really need to know all of this?
Yes, it's very important. Just like what I said, as you get older, people judge you by how you eat. And if you're out, and you don't need the 17, you don't need the big, it's just a fork, a knife, and a spoon, and a napkin, and plate, and cup. And where does that go? And how do you hold your utensils? And a lot of these kids don't know how to hold their utensils. And so after my classes, they do know. So I am so proud when they leave my house, my office, because they're so different. So it is important to know that.
Okay, so now it's a holiday time. Grandma's over. My kid opens a gift. It's an ugly sweater. My kid goes, "Ooh, this sweater's ugly. What am I doing?" Okay. What am I? SuAnn, tell me, what am I supposed to say to Grandma?
Oh my gosh. Well, okay, so here's the deal. Before Grandma comes, you're going to sit them down and say, "Now, Sally, when Grandma comes and you open the present, be happy and don't say, 'I hate this.' Just say thank you." Okay. And that's, so you have to go ahead and tell them what is expected of them, because they don't know. So you always want to make sure that you tell them before that happens.
Okay. Okay. Then that way. All right. Because I know.
But if you have, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, that's one of the things that happens and you don't realize by the time they say it, sometimes you're like, okay, that didn't go well. And then you kind of have to maybe wait for the next time where Grandma comes over to say, okay, remember what happened last time? Let's not do that again. Right.
Right. Okay. Right. Exactly. Yeah. That's a good idea.
We do live, so piggybacking on this ugly sweater, right? We live in a society where almost every gift now comes with a gift receipt and all, and we just want it exactly like that. And what is the right way to go about this? So is it okay for the kid to go and take this sweater and exchange it later, or is it actually the right thing to do to just hold on to it, wear it the next time Grandma visits, and kind of honor the gesture more than the gift?
Mm-hmm. Well, there's two. That's okay. So basically, if there's a gift receipt in that bag, or the gift, then that means that the person that was giving you that gift is saying, okay, if this doesn't fit or you don't like it, exchange it. Okay, that's number one. But if grandma went ahead and gave her this beautiful green sweater, then she should wear it just to be polite. Okay, and that's all it is, you know. So you want to make grandma happy. She probably went shopping. It took, you know, an hour to do all that, and you always want to respect that other person. Just you know, so that's just what you do. So
okay, so having a gift receipt is basically permission for someone to return it without any hurt feelings.
right.
But if it's coming with the tags cut off, you're
Mhm.
keeping that bad boy.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's okay to do that because that's what they're doing. You know, they're giving it to you just to say, well, if it doesn't fit, it's okay. You can take it back.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about thank you letters?
Ooh, those are my favorites. Okay, so every child in my class learns how to write a thank you note because when was the last time somebody sent you a thank you note?
I had a small dinner party and I got one and I thought it was awesome.
It is. I know.
It was so great. I mean, it was so nice and so unexpected.
Yes. Okay. So that's really important. Always thank you notes. And so we need to start our kids early on how to write a thank you note and why are you giving somebody a thank you note? Why are you doing that? Okay. So you want to tell your child do we write thank you notes? Okay. So we want to talk to them a little bit about it. Okay. And then show them how to write a thank you note. And it's not very long. It's just doing a dear whoever and say thank you and what you got, how you're going to use it, and then another thank you and love or whatever, and the name. And it's really important. And the kids try and make it fun. I mean, if you have sparkly stickers or whatever, it's kind of fun for them to make their own, or they can have a little box if they like soccer. They can have a little soccer ball, you know, a little thank you note, make it fun for them. And eventually they'll kind of get that whole thing going at an early age because the teenagers, so it's hard. So you have to sit there and pound on them. Did you write a thank you note? Did you write? So try and get them early in their age.
So I'm going to put myself out there and you can tell me if I was wrong in doing this, and I'm going to be good. I'm going to be okay if you tell me. Now, what I did was we would have these birthday parties for our kids and they would get these gifts. And I would say, these gifts are going to sit on the dining room table until the thank you notes are written, because if they were considerate enough to get you a gift, then you should be considerate enough to get you to write a thank you note. So they would get the Bath and Body Works stuff with the glitter, whatever. And so then they would look and they'd be like, oh, I want that lotion. So then they would say, you know, dear Sally, thank you for the bath. And then they would get that. And so that's how we bargained for the thank you notes. Right or wrong? I don't know. Tell me.
Great. No, I'm gonna use your you know, and that was really great. That's wonderful. And then they will be appreciative of writing that thing really fast. You know?
Right. And then as they got older and my siblings would send checks for their birthdays, they weren't allowed to cash them.
Yeah.
Until they weren't allowed to have the checks. I mean, but then I'm going to say now, my daughter just recently got married and I have gotten more texts from my friends who were there complimenting her on what a great thank you note she wrote for her wedding presents.
Oh.
So I'm like this.
Yeah.
So in the meantime, it caused trauma. You know what I mean? Like, in the meantime, did I cause a little trauma by forcing this?
Yes, that's great. No, I'm gonna use that in one of my classes.
Oh my gosh. Okay, my work here's done. Boop. Later.
Well, it's got to be more Becca, you know. Started a new trend.
Yeah, no, I just, you know, to me, it's thank you notes were always really important because it's an effort. When people give you a gift or think of you, to me, it's always really important to send a thank you note. And that's how I felt. So I pass that on to my children. Yeah. And I actually read one. I was at my brother's house at Thanksgiving, and my daughter's thank you note was sitting on his mantle. And of course, because I sometimes have no etiquette, I went over and read his mail and read her thank you note. which I thought was beautiful, you know?
Oh, well, that was a surprise. Great.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
But I
that's
didn't
great.
know etiquette, very much a surprise. No.
Yes, that's great. Oh, that's wonderful. I'm glad you do that because a lot of parents don't, they're not that, okay, they didn't write it, but it's okay, maybe. Or maybe we'll just do a text or an email. And that doesn't work. I really like to have the handwritten note. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
important.
I've always pushed for that one.
Absolutely. And emails today, and we're in this world of computers. I can tell when a child comes into my room, my class, I can tell this child has been on the computer all his life and never socially. So it's so important for parents to have time with the computer and off, because that's all they live. They have no social skills, and then they come into my class, and they learn a lot of stuff because they're on the computer all the time, and it's not healthy for these kids.
Well,
My niece cuts it off with the kids, 20 minutes and that's it.
I mean, I even remember, when my kids were younger, because they are no longer used to having phone conversations. So we live really far away from family. So
Mm-hmm.
the contact they have with grandparents and aunts and stuff, is mainly over the phone. But they are not used to this because they text everybody or send a message. And so
Mm-hmm.
when they were little, I would actually sit down with them and I would like prep them for a phone call. I would say, I want you to call grandma. I want
Mm-hmm.
you to think of at least 3 things you're going to tell her, because in the moment they don't, and to actually teach them how to have a conversation, because that is also something that I feel like is starting to get a little lost,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. And it's just telling your kids what you expect of them. And it's that simple. Let's say that you're going to, I don't know, the store or whatever, and you want to tell your child, now, if I run into somebody, I'm going to introduce you to whoever, and you're going to say, it's nice to meet you, and then you're going to say that person's name, Mrs. Brown. Okay, so that's how we introduce people. And if you don't teach them, they don't know. And they're more confident after knowing, because then you can practice with them. So it's always that time that you're reminding your kids, when you go into something, before you go into it, how they should be acting, and that's all they need to know. And the more they'll get it. So a lot of us think that our kids know it already, and it's not. They don't. So it's really important to do that.
So part of it then is kind of role playing then too, like before a situation, or
Yeah.
maybe a situation that's gone awry
Mm-hmm.
for the next time it happens. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing. I think a lot, for me at least, a lot of the things that I ended up trying to do with my girls was after we had had a misstep.
Mm-hmm.
Then it was like, okay, we got to do something differently next time.
Right.
And I mean, that's how they learn, and that's how we learn as parents on what to do.
Yes.
I mean, we're their first teacher, so and they
Yeah.
kind of follow our lead.
Mm-hmm. And you think they don't, and you think that they're not listening. Well, I have a 38-year-old son, and he wasn't an easy kid, but he's growing up now. He's a lawyer, so it's like, okay, I guess I did pretty well. So you always have to tell them what's expected of them and how you need to what are you going to do? How do you do it? So they'll be more confident the next time.
So, so what you're basically saying is etiquette is not just about it's not just about like your external for other people, but also internally your own confidence of being around in a society.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And knowing how to handle different situations. I mean, it could change. You don't know what to do and so forth, but it's so important to know all these etiquette manners. Social skills are really super important. And these kids, the teens, they get out there and they don't even know how to have an interview or what to wear, especially what to wear. I mean, what we're wearing today is just so different than when I was growing up. So, and again, there's that 7 seconds, they're judging you on how you look and what are your clothes doing. And, so it's really important that they have an image, that a college person going into an interview will get the college. Okay. So it's important to make yourself presentable.
How do you argue with, I can hear people saying, or teenagers saying now, well, you are asking me to cover up my individuality, who are my personal image. Why do I need to kind of dress up for the outside world if that's not who I am? How would you respond to that?
Well, again, if they're going to be wearing torn jeans and a t-shirt going into a business, and thinking that they're going to hire them, I don't think so. I mean, nobody wants to look at somebody like that coming through the door for a job. All right. So again, it's image, and we're all human and we all judge. So, I mean, that's the only thing I can say is, I would go ahead and wear, khakis, or they can, wear it as long as it's neat and tidy and they look good. I have people coming in. I do a lot of businesses here. And right now, I'm working on image with these new kids going into the workplace. And the businesses are saying, please come over, because these kids don't know anything, and because they're not taught. So it's very important. Your image is very important. It could lose your job or a college interview.
So what is the biggest issue you see when you are going out there working with these new adults? What's the thing that stands out the most?
I would say that they don't acknowledge you. So if I'm in the room, maybe getting ready for another interview, I'm sorry, if I'm going into a big room that I'm teaching these kids, they don't say hello. And so I have to say, hi, my name's Mrs. Brown. They don't introduce themselves. There's no small talk at all. So they don't say, oh, how's your day going? There's no connection, because they've been on those computers so long. They don't have an idea what small talk is, or even talk to somebody. So that's what I'm seeing right now. And again, image is another one, is a big one.
You know what? I had read about the whole not acknowledging, and because they're so used to like doing everything on the phone,
yeah,
that it's really hard to do. I remember saying to one of my daughters, you have 500 friends on Facebook, and one of them is standing over there. Are we going to go say hello? She's like, no. And I said, then why is she your friend on Facebook?
yeah.
If these people are your friends, then you say hello to them or you unfriend them.
Yeah.
So, and she's just like, her thing to me was, you just don't get it. And I was like, no, I guess I don't.
No. Well, as she gets older, that's going to change, I think. But I don't know. That's the first thing I could remember, is just not acknowledging people, and it's really kind of sad. So I always make an effort to, if there's a young girl in the elevator, I'll have a conversation with her, so how's your day going today? That's always a good question to get somebody to talk. Always a question. So I try and do that a lot, and it just kind of opens up people.
Right.
Be the first one to talk.
That's really interesting. I mean, it goes hand in hand. I mentioned to Eka this earlier that I think just like the way they don't really know how to greet and acknowledge people, there's also an issue with this whole ghosting, that they don't know how to say goodbye in a way, like if something is, if somebody, it's very common, I see this with my girls, that when kids stop doing an activity, they just stop showing up
Mm.
instead of actually letting, the teacher or the group know, I will not longer participate in, whatever, this choir because of XYZ. They just disappear.
Hmm.
And I find this, and I always say, well, how awkward is this? Now you run into the same people at the grocery store. What are you going to do? Are you going to hide behind the bananas? Because it will not created an awkward situation, but
Yeah.
there was no need for it. Because if the person would have simply said, I'm no longer attending this, then it would have been all good.
Right. And in my classes, I tell my kids, okay, so you just saw Mrs. Brown at the grocery store. And I kind of saw you a little bit come through the door and then you're gone. Okay, so now what are you going to do? Are you just going to go ahead and hide behind the Campbell's soup? Or are you going to come up to me and say, because they don't know, you're going to come up to me and say, oh, I met you the other day. You have to say how you know them and not just come up and say, what's your name? I met you the other day and I forgot your name. And I tell my kids, it's okay. You can say that. I forget people's names. So just go up to them and say something. It's better to do that than to hide. It's because it hurt my feelings, right? So you're always looking to the other person to make them feel comfortable. Alrighty. And we do forget people's names and it's okay. It's just say, I forgot your name. All right. So it's important. And if somebody calls you by the wrong name, say, I'm sorry, but I like to be called Mrs. Brown. Okay. So I give these kids all of these wonderful ideas because they don't know what to do. And that's why they hide. So it's important.
So SuAnn, I have a tip that someone taught me about remembering names. So let's just say I've met you before and I forgot your name, and I come up to you and I say, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot your name. And you might be like a little disappointed and you go, SuAnn. And then I say, oh no, I meant your last name.
Oh.
How about that one? And so then you go, and then you go, oh, Brown. I'm like, oh, okay. Cause I could, so SuAnn, I'm sorry, I couldn't remember your last name. So how about that one?
Well, that's a good one. I mean, I would say, do you have to have the last name? Maybe not.
Oh, I don't know if they say that, but I think like when you ask somebody and they look disappointed, like, then say, oh, I remember your first name. I remember your last name though.
Oh, okay.
Well,
I mean, yeah.
Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. But you know what? I mean, sometimes when you ask them again, I think sometimes they get a little disappointed that you couldn't remember.
Well, they shouldn't be, because again, you're trying to make that person feel comfortable, right? And you're not going to ditch them because of that. So, I mean, we all forget names. So
don't so much.
Yeah. So don't sweat it.
Whenever I go to an event where people wear name tags, I rejoice inside. I'm like, yes, because if I can actually read a name, I'm so much more likely to remember it. Like if you tell me your name once, nope, it's not gonna stick.
Well, talking about name tags, okay, so I did a program for ASU, and they had name tags, and most of them had them on the left-hand side. All right. Mm-hmm. And I said, I hate to tell you guys this, but your name tag goes on the right-hand side, okay, because you're going to be shaking hands with the right hand, and you're going to want to have your name tag here so people just can look right there and they can see your name, and they don't have to lean over. So it's always on the right-hand side. I think this is a big one that I'm always telling people, it goes on the right-hand side. So it's important to know that. But, remembering people's names are really good things. So basically, there's two ways to remember people's names. One is associate it with something. My last name's Brown. So it's the color, right? Or you should use their name a couple times when you're talking to them. And maybe that'll help you remember. I'm pretty much the associating one. Okay. So I put a note in my phone, the person that I just met, where I met them, whether it was I ride horses, so at the barn or something. So, and when I forget, I just open up my book and my phone and I look at my notes and I can remember that person's name. So it's just, that helps me out, but it's just something that it helps me. So, yeah.
So this is, so you said you teach adults too, huh? Because we all
I
need a
do.
refresher, don't we?
We do. And it's so, I mean, my kids go home and tell the parents how to, set the table, how to do this. Mrs. Brown said this. So they are so excited to go home. But I do have an etiquette classes for adults every maybe 4 months here in Arizona. And it's a 5 hour program, and we go over everything, communication, body language, networking, dining etiquette. It's just wonderful. In 5 hours, they learn so much. So they just need to polish up a little bit, and they feel better after they leave, so that they're more confident in what they're doing and their work. So it's really important. Or just an adult that just wants to learn.
Right. Well, then I think also as adults, and if when we have etiquette and sometimes maybe without even being a nag about it, I think kids follow our lead.
Yes.
And I mean, they see a lot more, like you were saying. And so, like, if, like, I remember at one point when our children were young, we were doing the fork thing, whatever, and they were eating like chicken or something. They picked it up with their hands. And I said, oh, not happening. My husband said, well, they're at home. And I was like, no, they need to practice it here. He goes, they wouldn't do that in a restaurant. And I was like, well, if they don't practice it here, they're not going to do it in a restaurant. And he was like, oh my gosh, a stickler for manners. I was like, yes.
Good for you. Gosh.
Well, they had to really, I mean, and they struggled. And I was like, but I didn't want them to go, like you said, someplace like for work, whatever, and then like be picking up this chicken with their fingers.
Right.
Because everybody, I mean, we've all gone to dinner with people we don't really know well, and we sit across from them, whatever, and we're like, did they just push food onto their fork with their food?
Oh, yeah.
I know, and I know I try hard not to, but I just can't,
Yeah, I know.
Have you been
had
there
that.
too?
Yes, I see it. Well, for me, an etiquette instructor, I try not to look sometimes because I'm going to tell you something really. Okay, so I was at a really nice French restaurant, and there was an older couple across the way, and he was actually blowing out his nose with his napkin. And it was the worst thing. And so I just, anyways, but I do tell my kids that a little bit too, because I tell them stories, and they're like going, oh, that's gross. And well, they won't do it. Okay. So, because I just told them that, it was really bad. Okay. So I always tell my kids stories. My classes are so much fun, and they're all interactive. And my kids are just amazing. Sometimes I want to cry at the end of we have a little graduation after they're done. And I just see them and I think, oh my God, you're so beautiful. So yeah, it's good. Etiquette's good.
Oh, wonderful. Well, before we wrap up, SuAnn, give us the number one tip for the holidays. Like if we have one day to prep our teens for the holidays, what is the one thing we can achieve before we get together with family and friends?
I would say sit down with them before the guests and tell them what you expect them to do. So if somebody's coming through the door, don't just, hi, greet them, say hello, it's nice to meet you. So that's really important. Again, acknowledging your guests, and try to get them on the dining etiquette a little bit, on how to hold their utensils and don't reach for things, ask for things. So kind of give them a 101 on table manners and so forth, and just be kind to everybody and try and talk to everybody. Don't sit in a corner, go up and talk to somebody. And the sentence is, how is your day going today? Okay. So that's always a good one to get going. Okay. So just be yourself and try and be the magnet that they're going to hold on to is what you're teaching them. It's important.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It was delightful. And
Thank
I'm
you.
already having better posture. Just listening.
I know, isn't it?
Yes, every time I tell everybody what I do, they get ready straight up. So it's really funny. I will have to watch, and they're like, okay. Well, have a wonderful holiday, everybody. Thank you so much for the invite. I just loved it. So, good.
Well,
Good
come back
talking.
again. And bye, everybody out there. Have a wonderful holiday. We'll see you next week.
Thank
Bye.
you, SuAnn.
You're welcome.